What if I told you the first time I trusted my gut was as a freshman in high school in the middle of a Sephora? Welcome to the Trust Your Gut podcast. You know, we live in a world that runs on mostly logic and reason, but I'm here to provide you a roadmap to life using the most ancient and arguably underrated form of wisdom, your gut. This podcast explores all you need to know on how to harness your own intuition through life's highs and inevitable lows. From relationships to parenting, to wealth management and career shifts, I'll walk alongside you to better understand how to lean into your own intuition for guidance and support. My name is Dr. Alaina Puff, school psychologist turned intuitive coach, and I'll be guiding you through this adventure as I share my personal and professional experiences on how I learned to tap into my own intuition and how this changed my life forever. Hello there. Welcome back to another episode of the Trust Your Gut podcast. My name is Dr. Alaina Puff, and I am going to be your host today. I want to begin by thanking you for being here. I know it has been over a month since I've put an episode out on the podcast, and I want to begin by apologizing for that. That was not my intention, but also to speak directly to that. The last month in my personal life, a lot of things have come up that were unexpected, a lot of transitions. And during this time, some of my listeners have reached out to me asking, when's the next episode? What's going on? You launched a podcast just to leave us hanging. And I have personally had to work through a lot of my own internalized feelings of guilt for not being more active on the podcasting platform, but also recognizing that the duality of our lives, right? We have these big, beautiful personal lives that we're engaging in, as well as maintaining our business and the channels related to our business. And so, this space, while it was longer than I expected, was absolutely so fruitful because the experiences that I have been through in the last 6 weeks have really fueled some of the amazing guests that I am going to have featured on here in the coming weeks and months. So it's all divinely put, and I'm just leaning into that. And I am really excited to get back on the horse, as they say, and record this episode with you today. I think another element that has been cropping up as resistance for me just doing the thing, recording the episode, is the nature of today's episode. The nature of today's episode is one that admittedly causes some discomfort in me. It's not something that I absolutely love to talk about, but it is necessary to talk about this with you all. Today, we're going to talk about results. And this has been one of the biggest shifts as I have really transitioned out of a traditional therapist role and into the coaching realm. The coaching realm is all driven based on results. It's more than just the healy-feely, all in the feels work. That's part of it, but it's really, what are the outcomes? How is this going to help me? How am I going to get better or feel better or perform better? And that has been such a mindset shift for me personally. So one of the biggest pieces of feedback that I've gotten from many of my listeners from these first couple episodes where I really shared my own personal testimony is, you are so relatable. Your story is so relatable. I plug directly into some of the things that you're saying. I too have these experiences, which is great, right? Like, we love relatability. Relatability is the common thread that connects us together as humans, as our shared humanity. My intention for those episodes is that I wanted it to be relatable. I wanted the people who could plug into any aspect of my story to know, first of all, that they're not alone. And second of all, there's ways to move the needle in the betterment of yourself. So today is all about the results. And I'm going to be sharing from my own history, my own recollection of how my life has really transformed and changed in very tangible ways, in hopes that it will inspire you to do the same, for you to take the agency over in your life and really assert yourself in every way you're designed to do that. And so while I'm so excited to share this with you, and even in preparation for this recording, writing down some of my accomplishments, I felt a lot of pride and joy, but it is not my nature from a personality perspective and professionally to brag. To brag. We're told not to to brag about anything. We, especially women in society, are told that we need to be modest. We don't want to make anyone feel bad. Is anyone resonating with this? I don't want to make anyone feel bad if I just play small. But part of this journey for me has been eradicating that play small mentality and to just really be a full embodiment of who I am as a person, as a businesswoman, as a coach. And that's what I'm here to do today. So, what do you think? Should we get into it? Let's go ahead and begin. So, really thinking about my life over the last, we'll call it a year and a half. The beginning of 2023 was really the apex of when I decided to take agency over my life, my healing, my well being, and my journey. And I really wanted to kind of acknowledge high level, objectively, what this last year and a half has entailed. The fundamental theme in everything that I'm going to talk to you about today is surrendering. Shout out to all my control freaks listening out there. I see you guys. You're not alone. Surrendering is one of the most fear-provoking things that we can do as humans. Letting go of that control, or the perception of control, rather. When we surrender to the unknown, to the divine, to our purpose, whatever it may be, the act of surrendering is us relinquishing our control and trusting that we're going to be held through it and on the other side of it. And wow, guys, that was a tough one for me. But it is the theme that is woven into everything that I'm going to talk about today. Is this act of surrendering to the unknown and trusting and having faith that I will be supported. So, January 2023, I had quit my full-time job in public education to pursue my dreams, whatever that meant. And one of the things I want to begin by saying is this decision to leave my job was the beginning of my surrendering. To saying that the path that everybody else, all my peers and colleagues are taking, is not mine. It's something different, but God, I wished it was the same one. That would have been a lot easier to navigate. And what's most important to say about me quitting this job, and the reason everyone around me thought I lost my mind, was I did not have another job lined up. Yes, I was going to have a PhD working at Starbucks. That's what I was heading for. Yet it was this burning desire in me that I did not care. I would gladly work at Starbucks if that was closer in alignment of what I needed. So I made a decision that I wanted to find a meaningful next step after I had quit my job. And so with that, one of my colleagues in the Phoenix metro area had a private practice. And I had never worked in a traditional therapy private practice before, but it was at the time my dream to eventually open my own private practice. And so with that, we set up in a meeting, and over dinner, we discussed kind of, she wasn't really hiring at the time. It wasn't like a job posting on LinkedIn, because believe me, if there was a post on LinkedIn or online, I found it, and none of them felt like they were the right fit for me. It felt like more of the same. So I struck her a deal. I said, listen, you need me. And I remember saying those words being like, what's going on here? And I said, you need to hire me, and here's why. And I got hired. The stipulation of my hiring came that I was required to build my own caseload of clients. I started out at 0. So that was a little intimidating, I'm not going to lie, but it really started the journey of me networking. and me learning how to grow this business. And the first result that I'm going to point out is not only that I landed this job, but in 4 months, I brought in a full caseload of clients, all private pay off of insurance, which for my therapist listeners, they understand the challenge around that. I filled a caseload in 4 months. Now, the important thing to talk about in this area is that looking back, the hustle that I was working at, the speed that I was working at was very much that same jet fuel that had propelled me through my educational and professional careers. I worked hard, tirelessly, to fill the caseload. It was gritty, crunchy, hard work that I was so familiar with. It was tough, but I did it, right? Even in the midst of it, I knew that this was not sustainable. It felt like that old paradigm coming up again around like hard work and grit. And you just got to like keep going harder and marketing harder and go to one more networking event in the week. And I knew that wasn't in my soul. That wasn't aligning with what I really wanted for myself. However, in that time, I wasn't working a full 40 hours a week, yet I was replacing my salary from in the schools. Let me say that again. I was not working a full 40 hours a week, but I had already replaced my salary that I was getting in the schools. And with that brought time and spaciousness. Time and spaciousness that I had actually never been gifted before. And with that time and spaciousness, I was able to really expand in ways that just were impossible before. And what I mean by expand is I mean to really be able to dip into my creative outlets. It began by making a professional social media account and doing posts and reels. It came with being able to start to lean into my intuition, my inner knowing, what I thought was best for me, trusting that, building that relationship. I don't think I would have been able to tune in the way that I did if I was still hustling at a 9 to 5. So looking back on it, I'm incredibly grateful for the ability to go into private practice because it showed me what I thought my dream was, that it wasn't, but while also giving me the spaciousness to really tune into my intuitive channel. So, as I was working in private practice at the beginning of 2023, growing my caseload, seeing clients, I really was leaning into this intuitive knowing piece. And what I wanted to do was definitely invest in myself through business coaching. And so I started working with my business coach, and she also helped facilitate this expansive mindset within me. And then around summer of 2023, my car started having really bad problems. And for those who know me, I pride myself on my vehicle because I was driving the Chevy Cruze. It was the first car that I ever bought as a 21-year-old fresh out of undergrad. And I loved this car, right? Like I had all these memories in this car, and the car really symbolized a lot more than just being a hunk of metal. It symbolized a portal that had carried me through my 20s. And there was an attachment to it. But it started having trouble. It was 10 plus years old, and she'd had some miles put on her. And I kind of was like, well, I'm making decent money, but I don't know enough to get a car. That seems unreasonable. And my instinct was to save her. I was like, whatever amount of money it takes, I'll save her. And my office was in Scottsdale, Arizona. For those of you who don't know, is a very affluent area of the Phoenix Valley. And I started seeing this BMW everywhere. I don't know if any of you can relate to that. Like, I just started really noticing this one particular car. It was a white BMW X3. And I just saw it every day on my way to work. I saw different versions of it out on the road. And I, was again becoming more intuitively aware of why I was noticing what I was noticing on my day to day life. And I thought, why do I keep seeing this car? Like, what the heck is going on? And so, uh, you know, I put the money into my Chevy Cruze and kept going. And I just kept noticing this BMW everywhere. And um, it was just like one random Thursday after work. I was driving home and I was like, I'm going to go look at BMWs tomorrow. And I bought a BMW the next day, just like the most impulsive thing I could have ever done. And, it was my dream car. It was the car that my clients were driving. And again, if I view this vehicle as a portal for myself, that was a portal when I said yes to this dream CEO car that I was really calling in. And so I purchased my dream car. To this day, I still go out to the parking lot and I'm like, wait, where's my car? Which one's mine? And I'm still shocked every time to know that I had the ability to invest in myself in a way that could get me something that I thought was so unattainable. So that's another point to mention is that, in a very materialistic way, this was something that symbolized the becoming relationship between myself and my intuition. And don't worry, everybody thought I was nuts. They were like, "Didn't you just quit your job and now you're buying this really nice car?" And I might have thought I was a little nuts, but it felt like what I was meant to do. The other piece that comes with it is really making the decision to ultimately leave my job in private practice. I spoke in a previous episode about how I was getting clients that were coming in, child and adolescent clients in particular, that were showing traits of being highly intuitive, highly sensitive. And so one of the timelines that could have happened was that I could have stayed at private practice and worked my medicine through that venue, but really creating flow state and trusting that I was meant to embody something different than a traditional psychologist or a traditional therapist. And so in the fall of 2023, I left my full-time job again, the one that was paying for my BMW. I jumped again. And on November 11th, 11/11, I threw a launch party for Flow State in Scottsdale, Arizona. I was surrounded by all my family and friends and supporters in my community who were rallying around me for this next step in my journey. And that's where it really gets good, right? Because Flow State is now this embodiment of all the twists and turns that got me to this point. And this is where I really want to get into specifics of how I have been able to what I call collapse timelines. You see, what I just explained to you, I would say would take the average person years to recognize they need to leave a job, to find a new one, to grow it and be successful and scale it in a short period of time, to recognize, no, that's not for me either, and do it again. It's the business of collapsing time. Because when you think about it, time is a very arbitrary thing. It means different things to different people. And the way our society runs, it's like this misperception of time. What if I told you you had the ability to manipulate time in a way that is most aligned for you? Because that's what I did. And so that's where I really felt called in my business to help others do the same. We waste, and waste is a harsh word, but we misuse time. It's the one finite thing we have in this lifetime. And so many of us spend our time worrying, being fear of receiving judgment, settling into uncertainty, criticizing ourselves. the circumstances that we live in, or just being outright harsh to ourselves. Time is such an important construct to unpack here because time is limited and time is precious. And in the work that I am committed to doing, I don't have an unlimited amount of time. So what I did is I collapsed time. What I would imagine would have taken me 5 to 10 years, I did it in a year and a half. And that might look different from person to person. But it was allowing it to be fast. Using arbitrary societal markers of like, well, the business advice I got was the first year you open your business, it shouldn't be profitable. Excuse me? What? Who made up that rule? Who decided that? And what if I don't agree with it? Well, you really should, not have gaps in your resume and you should really try to stay at a position for at least a year. What are you talking about? Who decided that? And so when you're able to relinquish yourself from these arbitrary markers of time, you are able to liberate your consciousness in a way that you can begin condensing and collapsing these timelines that is in a way that is most meaningful to you and your life's purpose. You give yourself that permission to do so. True liberation. So yeah, when I created Flow State last fall, I was terrified. I had not the slightest idea of what it took to be a business owner. I didn't have a space. I barely had a tax ID. But I'm here today to speak my testimony around how collapsing time allowed me to achieve my goals and to chase my dreams. And with hopes that you can do the same. So let's get into it. Flow State is up and running, and now I'm starting back at zero. Sound familiar? Yeah. Starting back at zero. I'm driving my nice car, feeling good, but having no idea like what comes next, right? And so the first, before I get to that, right around the same time, I actually began a teaching gig. Now, for context, this teaching gig fell in my lap. I had never really planned to go into academia, especially coming, off of my own academic journey, kind of feeling jaded by all of it. It was never a desire to become a professor, right? And one of the markers that I was on the right path was over that summer, right before I left the private practice to go and create Flow State. I had gotten correspondence from one of my former faculty members, and they had talked about how there was an opening at the Phoenix campus and that I should apply for it. And so as someone who doesn't take anything as coincidence, I kind of went out on a whim and I was like, well, I'll apply and, we'll just see what happens. And I got this position to teach. And looking back on it, it was actually so cathartic and healing because not only did it help financially, like get me up and running with my business by having some kind of buffer there, so to speak, but the lessons that were woven into this position about going back into the belly of the beast, we'll call it, or academia, somewhere that I was really robbed of my intuitive and creative knowing, to go back in and provide a reparative experience for my students. It was really powerful. And so I was starting this teaching career and also launching my business simultaneously. And it was something that I thought I could very much do both together. And so that has kind of been what I've been up to in this time. And it has been proven to be very demanding, but it has been also very rewarding. So as those first couple months were starting, I was definitely acclimating to being a professor and, navigating that role while also slowly starting to get some clients coming in who were interested about doing coaching work with me. And so, November, December with the holidays and everything like that, it wasn't the busiest of months, but it was really just time to integrate into these new positions. And when I came up on a year from where I began the story of quitting my full-time job in public education in January of 2024, that's when things started to get really exciting. That's where the surrendering deepened, and I was able to really, really be able to see the fruits of my labor. In January 2024, I had my first month where I had officially doubled any salary I've ever achieved in my life. 10K plus months. And I am so thrilled to report that I have been able to consistently sustain that to this very point in time. And so that has been just such a supportive and exciting accomplishment, because it's not just about the financial aspect of it, is that you're making good money. It's that this is the easiest money I have ever made. The easiest money I have ever made. So much I hear people talk about side hustles and just like busting their chops to make ends meet and like make a decent wage, a living wage. And especially the way the world is right now, that's never more apparent. But this is the easiest money I have ever made. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to give you the secret here today. It is because I am so clear on my purpose and my mission for my work that there are no entanglements there, that it is crystal clear. I am able to work less hours. The work that I am engaging in fulfills my soul. And I have been able to get deeper with my clients than I ever have before. The level of transformation that is going on in my sessions is of such great depths that it's continuously surprising me. It's also recognizing that in creation of my business, one of the best things I ever did was recognize where I was not strong in a particular skill set. Let me give you an example. Bookkeeping, taxes, money, financial related things. Not my forte. Never has been, probably never will be. So before even getting any money in my business checking account, I hired an accountant. I said, listen, I cannot put any energy into making sure my books are balanced at the end of the month. Let me have you do that. Same with like CRN. Like I knew that having a back end of a system was necessary for scheduling appointments and putting things out there, and recognizing just from the jump that I can't do this alone. I need support. So partnering with a software platform that helps enable me to have clear systems and procedures in place so that it's client facing, very easy to navigate, and less work that I have to do. I acknowledged that this was not my strength and I asked for help. That right there is such a transition from where I was just a year ago, where I thought I was going to have to muscle through everything. Right? I think also being able to fill my current caseload. So being able to serve these families that are stepping in and saying yes with virtually no marketing. Because I have been teaching and I have been doing my business, I really haven't had space to do any marketing, yet people are still coming through my door, popping in my inbox. That same grittiness that marked my experience when I stepped into private practice is no longer. People are just saying yes. People are just showing up. It's easy. No terrible network meetings to go to anymore, because I am so crystal clear on my vision and my purpose and the services that I provide to people. One story that I think is actually really powerful, and this goes back to the financial money piece of it, is I had a family who I've been working with their teenager for quite some time now. And they wanted to continue working with me when I made the transition into my business. And I welcomed them in. I said, of course, you can continue to work with me. And so this particular kid is a really talented baseball player. And so one of the boundaries that I set for myself when I started my business was we don't work after 5 p.m. anymore. Yeah, no, we don't do that anymore. So I made this boundary that I wasn't working after 5 p.m., but unfortunately this kid's practice goes until like 5:36. And so the dad called me and he said, "Hey, Dr. Puff, like here's the situation. We really want him to continue to get support from you. Can we brainstorm some alternatives?" And this was really important because this pushed up against my boundary of like, hey, I'm not really seeing people after 5 o'clock, and was an opportunity to really enforce it. So I said, yeah, I don't think I can provide a time after that. Unfortunately, 5 p.m. is the latest I'll work. Um, you know, Maybe we can find time in the future, blah, blah, blah. And not even at my own suggestion, this parent said, what if we pay you double? What? He said, what if we don't pay you double? He said, we value your services so much that it's worth it to us. Not my idea, folks. Literally came from this man's mouth. And I sat there and I was like, oh, oh, you know, I don't negotiate my boundaries on a lot, but I will negotiate my boundaries on that. And I use that as an example because that to me was a sign from the universe that like what I'm doing has value to the families that I'm working with. It has deep, profound meaning. And I think one of the things that as public servants, as people who are in helping professions, we get into this indentured servitude paradigm where we just have to bend over backwards to meet people where they're at. And it's at our own self-sacrifice. And part of the reason that I wanted to do this episode today is because it's not to just sit here and flex and say I drive a Beamer and make great money. Like that's not the purpose here. The purpose here is that when your life's purpose and your mission is to be in service to others, it does not mean it's a self-sacrificing, back-breaking experience for you. It shouldn't be. It can't be. You deserve to have all the goodness that comes to you in your life, in whatever way it's meant to come to you. It does not need to be one or the other. I hope that sharing my experience can show that it actually can be both. It can be both. And so, with that, those are just the tangible things. I could spend a whole nother episode talking about the intangibles, the way my relationship with myself has deepened, the relationships around me have deepened, the way the deepening of the connection to my mind, body, and spirit, the way I view my business, my relationship with my business, all these things that I can't necessarily put tangible adjectives to describe have also just opened and deepened in a way that I never anticipated. So, with that, here's what I want to leave you. You have the capacity to do whatever your soul's yearning is and to be wildly successful and fruitful from it. One of the things that I made the mistake of when I first started getting into the entrepreneurial world was listening to any business coach talk about mindset work and strategy and funnels and all these things. I got so caught up in the technical aspects of it. But doesn't that make sense that I got caught up in that? Because those technical aspects were familiar to the world that I was coming from, the world that was in a square box. It felt comfortable, it felt predictable and safe. Yet I was just recreating the same cage that I was in before. When I was out there hustling, trying to fill my caseload in private practice, I was recreating the same cage as before. So, for anybody who's looking to go and branch out and start your own business or leave your job or make a huge life pivot, my advice to you is be mindful of recreating your cage that you're so desperate to leave. And part of doing that is being so clear in how this is going to be different. The work that you're going to be doing, how it not only looks different, but how it feels different, how it impacts your clients different, how your advertising is different, and how it's all very intentional. And in doing so, you will be rewarded, whether that's financially, through a state of abundance, whether that's creatively by being able to do things like even host a podcast, whether that's spiritually and deepening into your mission and your heart's desires, you will be rewarded. But it's breaking down this work hard paradigm. I'm sorry for whoever is still clinging to that, but it doesn't work. In the short term, it might, but in the long term, it is just recreating your cage. So going back to my original point, surrendering. What in your life is feeling resistant? What in your life is holding you back from the next best thing for you? What's holding you back from that relationship, that job, that business, that experience, that adventure, that liberation? What is standing in your way? My ask of you today is to identify whatever that is and surrender yourself to it. Because in doing so, it will literally dissipate in front of your eyes. And you will gain trust in the process of whatever is meant to find you will. So I wanted to share with you today, again, incredibly taboo in the therapist community to talk money and success and all these things. But I hope by sharing this today, I can destigmatize some of the norms around this kind of hiding your successes, playing small. You deserve to do amazing work, make lots of money, have the things that you've dreamed of. You deserve it all. And if you hear anybody telling you otherwise, like it takes a year before your business profits, send them to me. So I'm going to leave us there for today. That feels like a good stopping point. I am just so excited again for the guests that I am teeing up to come join me on the Trust Your Gut podcast. I really appreciate you taking the time to tune in today. And if you have any questions or are looking for support and ways to grow and scale in your life, please feel free to reach out to me. I love to be a resource to you. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.